to take advantage of people, waiting for people to come here. We're now doing the development control. Some of you weren't here when I did the original things, welcome and introductions. Toilets are over there. If the place starts burning down, just go out the front. I wouldn't bother going to Druid Street. I'll turn left and go to Shipwrights, quite frankly. Officers, these nice people, will present the report to us, the members. If present and wishing to speak, the following may address the committee for no more than 3 minutes each. A spokesperson representing any objectors, applicant's agent, someone supporting it if they live within 100 metres, and a ward councillor. Yeah, I thought it might be. Ward members in attendance. Oh, I've done that. Each speaker should restrict their comments to the planning aspects and avoid repeating information. At the end of each presentation, the committee may ask questions of the presenter. After receiving all the submissions, the committee... Oh no, this is for the benefit of these people. I'm just filling time. Yeah. It's Hamish and Sarah. Pretend they haven't been smoking when they come in. This is a council committee meeting which is open to the public, and there should be no interruptions from the audience. Finally, I would like to everyone present to know, including those just walking in, the planning committee comprises of members from different political parties, but we're not politically whipped. And I am now going to start speaking extraordinarily slowly, and I can speed up now. And we now move to the last item, which is 7.4 Lavington House, 25 Lavington Street. And who has the pleasure? Terence, give us your best shot.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, members' attention is drawn to the addendum report, which includes some report clarifications, some additional condition in Section 106 information, and details of a letter of support from the Bankside Residents Forum. So the application site refers to the two linked buildings located at 25 Lavington Street, which is shown on the map. The site area measures approximately 0.65 hectares, and the existing buildings rise to 5 stories. The site is located within the central activity zone, and the surrounding area is in mixed commercial and residential use. The site has street frontages onto Lavington Street and Ure Street, and is bounded to the south by Network Rail offices and the railway viaduct. Further to the west is Great Suffolk Street. Building heights within the immediate area range from 2 stories up to 8 and 10 stories, with some taller elements within the wider area, such as Neil Bankside, which goes up to 24 stories. Planning consent is sought to redevelop the site to provide a mixed-use scheme, providing offices, retail space, and 173 new homes across 5 new buildings. The homes would be provided across 4 buildings, made up of 3 linked buildings in a separate small block of 3 mews houses. The towers would rise to 8, 13 and 21 stories and are known as blocks A, B and C respectively. These residential blocks would be arranged in a U-shape, opening out onto Lavington Street with a central courtyard in front of the tallest building, as shown here. The mews houses would be 3 stories in height and would sit on the southern boundary of the site behind the residential towers next to the railway viaduct. The office building would be located to the east and would have frontages onto Lavington Street and Ure Street. The office building would rise to 10 stories and would have a basement that would accommodate cycle parking facilities and plant rooms. The scheme also includes 3 flexible commercial units, one of which would be located within the ground floor of Block C, which is shown there on Lavington Street, and the remaining 2 would be located within the ground floor of the office building. The office building itself would be set back from the street on Lavington Street, creating an open space that would be known as Lavington Place. This would then lead into a public access route between the office building and Block C, and then onto a larger accessible public space. In land use terms, the provision of improved office space is welcomed, and the new homes would contribute towards meeting the Council's strategic housing objectives. The flexible commercial units would serve the proposed increase in population and contribute towards the vitality and viability of the district town centre, The range of uses are therefore welcomed and fully supported. Affordable housing would be provided at a level of 35%, which would include 34 affordable dwellings on site, equating to 21% when measured by habitable room, plus an in lieu payment of 7.725 million, which brings the balance up to 35%. In terms of the on-site affordable housing, 21 units would be social rented and 13 would be shared ownership homes. The tenure splits slightly outside of the policy of 70-30. It's noted that this isn't strictly policy compliant, but given the benefits of delivering on-site social rented housing in the Cathedral's ward, the proposed ratio of 78 to 22 is considered acceptable. It's also noted that the scheme delivers a very high proportion of 3-bedroom social rented units, including the news houses, and the quality of this family accommodation is a significant benefit of the scheme. The proposed development would provide well-lit, well-ventilated homes that meet the space requirements of the residential design standards. Excellent communal amenity spaces provided for the affordable housing block, including play space for the under 5s age group, and this is welcomed. While it is noted that some units across all tenures do not meet the minimum private amenity space requirement, the shortfalls are largely minor and are acceptable within the context of the overall amenity space provision. Amenity impacts to neighbouring buildings would be limited, with no significant levels of overlooking, as the minimum standards set out in the SPD would be achieved. Furthermore, all of the surrounding residential properties remain compliant with BRE guidelines in terms of VSC and daylight distribution, indicating no adverse impact in terms of a loss of daylight or a loss of sunlight. Now, the proposal involves the provision of tall buildings, which have been carefully considered against the requirements of the London Plan and local design policies. The buildings will sit on the periphery of the established cluster of tall buildings at the northern end of Blackfriars Road and would contextualise well with their surroundings. Although the proposal would be visible from a number of vantage points, this is not considered to be harmful or unduly prominent. Officers consider that the scheme exhibits a high standard of design, which would be a positive addition to the area. A detailed landscaping master plan is provided, consisting of a series of courtyards, which are of high quality design. These feature semi-mature planted spaces and lawn areas, groves and play space. The layout would create well-considered spaces which enhance the sense of enclosure using hedges, ground cover and other screening, including bespoke seating. The development would essentially be car-free. The only parking that would be provided would be accessible car parking spaces for the wheelchair homes. These would be located in the basement, which is accessed from Lavington Street. All new residents and commercial occupiers would be made exempt from obtaining parking permits, and the level of cycle parking is fully compliant with policy. The Section 106 agreement will also secure the affordable housing as well as the relevant review mechanisms, and will also secure the standard of fit-out and marketing period for the wheelchair accessible homes, demolition and construction environmental management plans, energy strategy, service management plan, landscaping plan, details of affordable workspace and a clawback mechanism to secure additional financial contributions should the designated wheelchair affordable homes end up being provided as general needs affordable homes, following a suitably robust marketing exercise. Concerns have been raised from local residents regarding impacts in terms of amenity, daylight and sunlight, design, height of the buildings, car and cycle parking, affordable housing and impacts on protected views. These objections are addressed in full in the case officer report at paragraphs 182 to 196. In conclusion, officers welcome the redevelopment of this site, which would provide a high density mixed use development with commercial, residential and retail use, and would support the aspirations of the Borough, Bankside and London Bridge opportunity area. The development would provide a significant number of affordable family homes, and following lengthy negotiations on viability, the Council's appointed expert advisors recommend that the proposal is a good one which should be accepted. The development is in an acceptable location for tall buildings, and no harm is caused to any strategic or local views, despite the taller elements being visible from a number of vantage points. Officers are satisfied that the proposal is of a high architectural standard and would provide high quality homes. The proposal provides an appropriate response to its context and would not harm the character or setting of any nearby conservation areas or listed buildings. The development offers a range of benefits, including housing, employment and retail use, as well as new areas of public realm and green space. Having regards to the development plan and national, regional and local guidance, officers recommend that planning permission be granted, subject to conditions, completion of a legal agreement and referral to the Mayor of London.
Brilliant, thank you very much indeed. Any questions at this stage? Hamish?
You mentioned that the tenure mix of the affordable housing provision is slightly off of policy requirements. Just to clarify, it's disproportionately in favour of social housing, isn't it? Yeah. So it's a good way of being, yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. Brilliant. Any further questions? If not, is there any objectors in the room? If there are no objectors in the room, is the applicant and applicant's agent in the room? Yeah, one of you. Well, you really haven't come here just to see me, I can assure you. Come on, do your presentation. Tell us who you are, and once you have... Tell us who you are, and once you've told us who you are, your 3 minutes will start.
Very good, thank you, Chair. I'm Artur Carulla. I've been the partner in charge of the scheme at Allison Morrison Architects, involved in the proposals for nearly a decade now, believe it or not, on and off, through different briefs and changing circumstances. 6.5 at that time. Thank you, Chair.
On the way up and on the way down.
Shut up. Well, it was a very good briefing, so I won't add on to the detail of the architecture as such. I just would like to point out that this project offers the opportunity to redevelop a substantial site in the heart of Banks, and that this is probably the last opportunity for urban regeneration at this scale north of the viaduct.
Yeah, that's it, right thing.
Don't worry, your time is being added to.
Sorry.
Pay no attention to the barracking from behind.
I'll try. This is a site we know very well as a practice. We're based immediately to the north. We have designed the neighboring buildings to the east and the west. And so when I say that we know the site, it's not just that we know the physical context of it, but we know the people who live and work in the area. They are our neighbors. Lots of them are collaborators and friends. So in this sense, we are designers, but also stakeholders as an added element of pride in the project. As a result, we know very well the failings of the site in its current state, and we're also very aware of the opportunities that it presents. Our proposed development delivers a true mixed-use scheme. When I say true mixed-use, it's not just housing with a couple of retail units on the ground. There's a substantial part of office employment floor space. And these are arranged within a composition of 5 buildings. And while we are very proud of these buildings, we think that it is actually the space between the buildings that is particularly remarkable of this scheme. The arrangement in a checkerboard footprint pattern resolves a complex site geometry and overcomes a number of constraints and creates this collection of spaces for residents and the public. These include a mix of gardens, an informal public piazza along Lavington Street, but it also extends the pedestrian north-south route connecting St. Paul's to Union Street and facilitates the extension of the east-west route of the Low Line in its connection between London Bridge and Blackfriars. Finally, these spaces also facilitate the future redevelopment of the Network Rail site to the south, in as much as it provides significant amount of additional frontage and access to the site. The site is currently almost virtually landlocked, and that makes its redevelopment very difficult. So not only is delivering homes and workspace of a high standard of design, but most importantly, it leverages its scale to offer significant urban improvements and facilitate future developments. So I think it is a generous scheme.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, you have 30 seconds left.
Are there any questions?
Thank you, Chair. So you've got a generous public realm and you've made much of it, but obviously the more space you give out at the bottom, the higher you have to go to make the money back on the land, basically. And I just wonder, so what's the driver of the kind of the generous public realm and that? If you could just explain why you prioritise that over heights, as it were.
Right. So we don't see this in terms of a of a trade-off, but I'll tackle both points. The open space, I think it's much needed. Those of you, I mean, you all know the area very well. If it's short of something, I think it's green space. There is not far the large esplanade in front of Tate Modern, but you know, we see this with colleagues and friends in the area. What is the area is lacking is slightly more, if you wish, intimate, quiet spaces to read a book, stop at lunch for your you know, to eat your sandwich, have a quiet talk to a friend. This is the sort of space that this is delivering. Lavington Street at the moment, it is not working really well as a street. It is just a route that both taxis in the rat race avoiding the traffic lines of Southwark Street and pedestrians go from A to B as quickly as possible. This is creating a successful street with active frontage, good landscaping, trees, shops, residential entrances, office entrances. So we think that this is very important, partly because we do acknowledge that also a lot of people in the area use these parallel streets as an alternative to Southwark Street, which has its advantages but also has its disadvantages. So we thought it was, in that sense, much better to deliver a network of spaces rather than a single large concentrated space in the middle. I would like to point out that collectively the amenity space exceeds by 35% the guidance in terms of provision of amenity space. So it has 35% more than guidance suggests it should have. Your question was framing that this significant contribution was at the expense of height. We don't think generally height is a bad thing. It can be bad in the wrong context if it's poorly designed, if it has impact on neighboring flats or amenity spaces. That's not the case here. Basically, the taller elements, first of all, are relatively slender in that by the time you get to the top element of the building, there's only a small number of units clustered around a core. But in particular, the tallest element, I would like to point out, you will remember me as the mirror scheme guy, because I was here 2 weeks ago talking about mirror scheme. But if you remember the concept we were describing in terms of rights to light in the past committee, it applies here as well. If you were to build along Lavington Street frontage a consistent 8-story building over the full length of the building, you would not see this tall building. In other words, this tall building is in the shadow of the equivalent 8-story building that you would have designed along the street frontage. It is taller, but because it's set back, it is not any more prominent or constrains more of the skylight or creates more of an overshadowing effect than that equivalent mansion block scheme. There are no residential units that the scheme can cast a shadow on. The amenity space benefits, passes the VRE test handsomely. This is not a tower that is designed as a landmark, as a point of reference, as an icon within Bankside. In fact, when we were choosing the townscape views, we had to look long and hard for viewpoints where we could actually spot it. Bear in mind that to the back it's got a very wide railway viaduct. That means that the first time you see this building from the south, you're already quite far away.
I was trying.
Sorry, I'm really passionate about this. Well, if you feel satisfied with my answer so far, I'll stop.
It's much better than efficient. What did he miss out?
Can any of the buildings be seen from the Rossler, Brack, and the other building in the US Street, Union Street buildings? Can you see any of them from those buildings?
Sorry, where from exactly in Union Street?
From where Graham Morrison lives?
Gosh.
Will you be able to see it from his?
It's very unlikely you would have been invited.
What was the reason for the question? Then it would be easier to find an answer.
I can't disclose the reason.
The building, the tallest building was visible at the time of the application because there was a plot that remained undeveloped that's no longer the case.
Okay. Are there any further questions? If there are no further questions, thank you very much indeed. Is there... Oh, no, please go and sit down. Is there a supporter who lives within 100 metres? Oh, blimey. Brilliant. If you could tell us who you are and where you live so that we can check.
Right, my name's Marion Marples from the Bankside Residents Forum. That I'm aware that it depends how you measure 100 metres.
Marion, I must admit, I take the simplest view that 100 metres is made up of 100 separate metres joined together. Sadly, and it's in a straight line, and sadly if you don't, even though you might represent people who live within 100 metres, you will not be in a position to make your contribution. We do try and make that as clear as possible. So do you live within in the conventional way of measuring 100 metres, do you live within 100 metres?
I live, yes, I don't think, I can't say that I do, no.
I can get Brian Cox on the phone, because he's space time based.
Where do you live? So
45 Dalton Street.
Can anyone have a quick look and see what...
Exactly, and the nearest point of the development. It has been measured, I've been told, to be 100 metres, but...
No, we're...
Yeah,
No,
thank you.
it doesn't. No, sadly you're not able to speak, but your support is noted in the same way as a beer forward, willing to speak in support of it. Sadly.
If there are particular views you want the local council to reflect in his speech,
David, sorry.
Is there a ward councillor who wishes to speak? David, could you introduce yourself yet again?
And your 3 minutes start, please.
Councillor David Noakes, Cathedral's Ward Councillor. Right, so I'm going to start by saying I'm not blind to some of the benefits of this application, but on balance, I'm going to speak against the application on the grounds of height, density, and the failure to deliver 35% affordable housing on site. Members will be aware that there'll be 8, 13, and 21 stories. I do not believe this sufficiently delivers against, say, policy 3.20, which is laid out in paragraph 56. I would question that it delivers against points 1, 2, and 5 in particular. The current tall building policy that we have identifies 3 areas suitable for tall buildings: the north end of Blackfriars Road, the Elephant and Castle, and London Bridge. In my view, there is a desperate need for the Mayor to have a strategic tall building policy in London to regulate where tall buildings are located. On the positive side, I accept it does not have a negative impact on daylight and sunlight of residential properties in Union Street, and I also recognise that it does deliver at street level. My second reason for objecting relates to the failure to deliver 35% affordable housing on site. I note that 34 units will be delivered on site, equivalent to 21%, with an additional 7.25 in lieu payment. I would draw members' attention to paragraph 99, which our own viability people said the sense check ought to be able to deliver potentially in excess of 35%. I acknowledge it surpasses the 70-30 social rent intermediate housing split, and also that it delivers a higher proportion of 3-bed properties that are delivered, being 16 units. Density is also an issue. It considerably exceeds our density maximum upper limit of 1,100. It's actually 1,856. If members are minded to approve the application, I note and support the applicant's proposal to provide Bankside Residents Forum with 50 square metres within the flexible unit for 10 years at a peppercorn rent. I hope that will be conditioned, if that's appropriate. And I also would support a request for residential liaison meetings during construction, including representatives of BRF and ward councillors.
What, 50 seconds left?
it's all right.
You're getting good at this.
Practice.
Yeah. Have members any questions of David at this juncture? If no questions are coming forward, thank you very much indeed for your contribution. Does anyone got any further questions of the officers for clarification? Hamish?
Thanks, Chair. I just want to pick up on David's point about affordable housing. I confess I hadn't read paragraph 99 until he directed us to it. So I've just read it, and I just want to understand the process that GVA went through. It seems to suggest that they did an assessment which concluded that the scheme could support 24.5%, and then did a stand-back analysis that concluded it could have supported more than 35%. What changed between those two moments of testing it?
The first analysis, which is 24.5, is based purely on the appraisal. The figure that was in excess of 35% was based on comparable schemes and what the land transactions were, what the site sold for. The problem being there's probably not any within the area that are immediately comparable to the Lavington Street site, which is why officers consider the fact that we've got to 35% overall to be a positive aspect of the scheme. But there are two different assessments. One's based on land transactions and the other one's based purely on the appraisal.
Any further questions? If there are no further questions, does anyone wish to make a comment? If there are no comments that wish coming forward, thank you very much indeed for bringing this forward. I propose that we accept it as on paper with all the comments that were made. Is that seconded? Hamish has seconded it. All those in favour, please show. All those against, please show. Brilliant. Unanimous. Thank you very much indeed, Canvas. Off you go.
What do we do now till 1 o'clock? Crazy. Anyway, thank you all very much.